I have a bad habit, and that bad habit is starting books and not finishing them. The current books that I have started and then ignored are Dear Amy by Helen Callahan, Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, and a book that is written by a friend of mine. So I'm starting with the easiest book, and we are starting with Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, which I have been reading on my Kindle. Editing Kate here. After I kind of compiled all of those clips, I realised that I finished Things We Hide from the Light but never kind of really said anything about it. I thought similarly about it as I thought about the first one, and then I went on to read the third one and felt the same way about them, is that they were fine. They were just pretty unnecessarily long for romance, but glad to have the series ticked off my list, and yeah, I probably would recommend it. Well, the overnight curls are curling. I think it's been like 2 months since the last clips, and surprise surprise, I'm still reading pretty much the exact same books. I need to finish these books, even just so that I can give fully formed opinions on them, because they're not bad books. I'm the problem, and I just need to finish them and I need to read them. So let's just keep tracking. The one that I'm going to start with is Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan. I'm currently 159 pages in, and it's oh my gosh, this book isn't even 300 pages. I just need to get it together, lock myself in a room and read it. So let's enjoy these few minutes now. Storygraph tells me I'm currently reading 14 books. I would say that if I also looked on my Goodreads, there would be maybe 3 or 4 other Kindle books that I have started, but not even read any of, so I'm not counting them, and we'll see what I'm still reading and where we're going. Most recent is I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki. I am actively reading this book, so I'm not really going to include it in this. This book is currently sitting by my bed, and I've been reading a chapter every night, and I've actually been really enjoying that. I haven't done that in a while. Generally, I just read one book the whole way through. I just bring it with me. Whereas this book I've specifically left at my bed, and I only read it in bed, and it's just a nice little wind down. Next up is Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, and I'm embarrassed that that book is still on my currently reading. I bought this book in June. I mean, I have lots of books that I haven't read that are older than June, but I did start reading this book in like July. I bought this book on my way to Sierra Leone in June, and I had not really heard anything about it, but I picked it up, thought it would be good, and I think the fact that it's taken me 6 months to read it probably indicates what I actually feel about it. I realised that this book is less than 300 pages. I could read it in an afternoon if I just put my head down, and I am getting much further along. From reading in the car the other day, I've kind of got back into it. But I think this kind of like Irish literary fiction, it just isn't for me. I feel kind of the same way about Sally Rooney, and I know people either just really like love her or are just a bit not for me on her books. And I think this probably falls into that category for me. To be honest, I think the longer I read this book, just the less I like our main character, Ava, to the point where I was reading this book yesterday and I completely forgot our main character's name. Next up is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. This is the first in the Crescent City series. This book James actually got me for Christmas last year and has basically been sitting on my shelf since. I started reading this at the end of July according to Storygraph, and I have really been enjoying it, but I think it's just been really slow, and I think the first book in a fantasy series is always like that, but this book is just so thick that it's just taking a little bit of extra mental processing. And with the amount of travelling that I've done over the last 6 months, to be honest, I just didn't want to carry around such a big book. And I think that's reasonable. I have since bought this on Kindle, when I was coming home from Africa at the end of October. I bought this book on Kindle because I thought, you know, it's easier when you read a fantasy book on Kindle because you don't notice the pages going in as much. And I do think that's true. I really do want to finish this book. I do think the story and the plot is great. I'm currently only 29% in, so it feels like we have so far to go. But I really, really want to finish this by the end of the year. And I'm going to claim that there are only 2 other books that I have started and properly started and not finished. And that is A Line to Kill by Anthony Horowitz and The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. A Line to Kill is the 3rd in the Hawthorne and Horowitz mystery series. The first 2 books I read while we were in Mexico, and so if you want to hear my thoughts on those, you can go back and watch that video. I thought they were really good. I've started the 3rd one. I'm going like 10% in. I just didn't really want a mystery of that sort. James has read all 4 in this series and he rated this one as his least favourite. And so, to be honest, because I knew that, I'm not very excited to be in this book, but he said that it is still really important to the overall plot and I shouldn't just skip on to the 4th book. And The School for Good Mothers, again, I started this in Mexico while I was sitting in the pool. I read like 1 chapter and then I got talking to someone and I just never really came back to it. I really like the premise of it, but again, I'm only 8% in, and so I just don't really know where we're going. There are a bunch of books that I have also DNF'd in the last kind of 6 months that, to be honest, I have no regrets about DNFing. I will likely come back to at least one of them, but as a person who would never DNF a book, I am quite proud of the character growth and maturity in my reading, where if I'm just not feeling it, I'm just not feeling it and I'm not going to push through, especially when I'm like less than 20% into a book. So the books that I have DNF'd that I would like to come back to are Dear Amy by Helen Callahan, The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, and The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. These were all books that I think were just like right book, wrong time. I kind of picked them up not really wanting to fully commit just because they were there, and so I know there's a time for them. I just need to find that time, definitely in the new year. For the books that I have DNF'd and will probably not come back to, they are She's Up to No Good by Sarah Goodman Cafino, Timid by Devney Perry, City of Glass by Cassandra Clare, From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata, Fling by Joseph Murray, These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, and Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. Current plan of attack is I need to finish Exciting Times. And actually, I'm really close. I'm currently on page 226 and there are only 275 pages, so I have less than 50 pages left. So come with me to hopefully finish this book. Okay, so I have just finished Exciting Times. Honestly, I think I'm just glad it's over, which feels really bad to say, but I think just this type of writing, I think just isn't for me. I think the fact that this book took me around 6 months to get through was a sign that it was never going to be my favourite book of the year. I think the things I disliked the most about this book were just like, it felt like it had no plot. It's just purely character based, where they just kind of do nothing and are actually quite abrasive people. I just couldn't really get on board with. I think the fact that I forgot our main character Ava's name for most of the book was also a sign that it wasn't going to be my favourite. I think the only real drama that this book provided was the fact that you're kind of left with a bit of an ambiguous ending. Our main character Ava has obviously moved away. She's had the drive to leave Ireland and to go to Hong Kong. But after that, she kind of doesn't really show any drive or motivation for anything. Once she moves in with Julian, which happens right at the start of the book, there's kind of just nothing else. Like, she has no drive, and without kind of spoiling a lot of the book, there's kind of no real way to describe in detail just how apathetic she is towards her own life. And to be honest, especially in winter, I struggle enough not to be a very apathetic person. And so I want to read books that make me feel happy, or at least make me feel something. Whereas with this, it was just so blah. And I can just accept that it's totally not a book for me. And that's fine, and I think that's just how we'll have to leave it. So unfortunately for Exciting Times, it is a 2 stars. I am happy that I pushed through and that I didn't DNF it in the end. I debated it many times, but I am glad I finished it. It is so far out of my usual reading habit, and maybe one day I will come to love books like these, but for now, it's not my favourite. Crouching like this, probably because the lighting's okay and it's a reasonably unmessy place to put the camera. But anyway, on to our third book, which is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. This is another book that I started in the summer. I originally started this book back in July when James and I went to Bristol. I brought it with me. I have this book both in physical copy in the paperback and also on Kindle. Mainly the font is like really small. I don't know if you can see that. And so it just put me off. And also I've been doing a fair amount of travelling over the last few months and I just haven't always wanted to bring like a fairly chunky paperback with me. And so at the end of October I also bought this on Kindle and have been kind of reading it on that as well. But I am just at the point where I'm not getting enough time to like sit down and deeply like read this book. So I have decided to take the plunge and buy this on audio as well. And that kind of pains me slightly because I don't like spending money to have more than one copy of a book really. And so the fact that I have this in physical, which was a present, I now have it on Kindle as well, which I bought for like £5, and I'm going to use an Audible credit and get it on that, is a little bit disappointing for me. But I really just want to get into the meat and bones of this book, and I feel like I am not doing that at the minute. So this evening I have the house to myself. It is like 7:30, and so I'm going to download the audio, I'm going to pop it on, and I'm going to do a bunch of housework because that is one thing that I have been seriously neglecting recently. And the fun thing about downloading this on Audible is that when I downloaded it and hit play, it has picked up exactly where my Kindle has left off, which I haven't really done before. I go back and forth between Kindle and Audible. And so this is going to be a great way to, yeah, kind of tandem read this book on audio and also on Kindle. So let's get to it. It's been a couple of days since I downloaded House of Earth and Blood on Audible and I have absolutely devoured it. I was at that 30% marker where it feels like it's kind of make or break for a book. Either you kind of get totally engrossed in the story, or it's just kind of the point where you're fully disconnected and at that point you may as well DNF. So I'm so glad I decided to download it on Audible and give it a listen as well. House of Earth and Blood is the first book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas, and if you haven't heard about it already, I would really highly recommend checking it out. This book follows our main character Bryce, who right at the start of the book experiences a demon killing all of her best friends, and then we kind of flash forward 2 years later and whatever or whoever killed her friends seems like is back and is re-killing. And so we see this unusual pairing between Bryce and this fallen angel who now like works for the government. It's fantasy, it's a little bit complicated. But anyway, they pair up to try and solve this murder. And it's safe to say I did not anticipate where this book went. One of the things I love about fantasy is that you feel like you never kind of know exactly what's going to happen. And so I really enjoyed just being kind of along for the ride. I really, really enjoyed this book. And I'm still kind of debating what rating to give this. It's definitely a 4. It might even be a 4.5. I think the only thing holding it back from a 5 star is just the fact that it took me a really long time to get into. So I'm excited to read House of Sky and Breath and see what happens in that one, and will that be a 5-star book. So these are the 3 books that I have read in this video. The first one was Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, the second one was Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, and the third one was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. I have really enjoyed making this video and kind of pushing myself to keep going on books that I may otherwise have just forgotten about, and I will absolutely be continuing this as kind of a series in the new year. I have set myself the challenge of reading at least one non-fiction book every month next year, and I have set myself the challenge of each month I will be drawing specific prompts for myself. Haven't written them yet or haven't found them yet, and so stay tuned for that one. But I really hope this will help push me outside of my normal kind of easy romance comfort zone, and hopefully I will experience a lot more good books next year as well. Hopefully you've stuck with me in this video, and if you have to this point, I'm so thankful for you. I hope that you are enjoying the run up to this Christmas season and that you have a safe and happy Christmas and New Year. As always, you can find me at Kate's Literature on Instagram or somewhere else on the internet. I'll see you soon.